welcome to the Brookhill podcast today. The John Thomas, legend to the podcast. Would our audience welcome John? Thank you.
David, I know this is part of your dinosaur series.
That's right.
That the old people back in for let's just go back to Jurassic Park and see what they have to say. Is that what this is?
Yeah, that's what this is. So
it's great to be here.
Awesome.
I love it. I love listening to the podcast and love what you're doing, and honored, absolutely honored to be asked to come in.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you being. So you listen. You're a listener.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
What's your favorite episode?
Well, see, now this is going to date me because I like the Teresa Ferguson episode, and when you bring some of the oldies in there. But I love listening to some of the new ones too, and hear what you guys are doing, and just hearing the impact of being part of this amazing thing called Brookhill, and what it has done to people and how it ripples out. I love it.
I love that. I love the connections. I love the multi-generational. We're looking to have Connie soon.
Oh, yeah, great.
So we're going to, and of course, Connie kind of is a bridge, because she goes way back to now.
She has seen it all.
She is. She's almost like the Hetty of this generation, just because Hetty bridged so many gaps,
Right.
All right, well, let me introduce who John is. You were camp director in the 80s.
Yes.
Basically,
yes.
Kind of had Tim and Gary in the 70s, is that right?
That's correct.
Then you had Cato in the 90s.
I think that's right. Yep.
Sexton in the 2000s, and kind of had Jason Ross. I mean, me and Lindley were in there somewhere, but Jason Ross in the 2010s.
Yes. So it was probably, at least in my time, Tim, then Gary, then me.
Okay. And then you kind of passed it on to
I think Ricky Allen may have been mixed in there somewhere.
Okay.
Maybe not as director, but assistant director or something like that.
Okay.
So
we're gonna have to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, he would be great.
Now, were you a camper, then counselor? So you did the whole thing.
Well, I came in late age-wise as a camper, so I wasn't the third grade all the way through. I came in about 6th or 7th grade. I think I was 12.
Okay.
And so what is that? Probably about 6th or 7th, somewhere in there. And so I didn't have a really long career as a camper. I was kind of in and out pretty quick, but the impact was huge.
Come on.
Yeah, so my oldest sister, who happens to be your mother-in-law,
yes,
Terry, started dating Tim at Hot Springs High School when my family moved to Hot Springs back whenever that was in the 70s. And so naturally she got kind of pulled into, they got pretty serious dating. She got pulled into camp, and she did a summer or some amount of time out here, and she came back home and said, hey, to me, and my younger sister said, y'all got to come out. And we did, and we both loved it. But for me, it was like coming to another universe. I had no context for camp, period, much less Christian camp. And so I came into this thing, and I was blown away, scared to death, but blown away of just the immersion in love and fun and all that kind of thing. My parents had recently divorced, and so I was just sort of swirling around, not knowing what to do with life. And the guy counselors just were everything to me. They meant so much to me, and just that, masculine, strong male, but still fun and all that kind of stuff. And it just blew me away. I became a Christian first or second week I was here. The story is, as I recall, I came for a 1-week session, and I think my mom, in order for me to come, traded a flat-bottom aluminum fishing boat with Tim for me to come. Can you believe that he would even charge that?
Right.
But he did. I mean, he's dating my sister.
Right.
Anyway, I think she just wanted to get rid of it. And so I came back from that week, and I just went back home. I said, Mom, I've got to go back to that place. I didn't want to leave, bawled my eyes out, And so she said, well, I still have the 5-horse Evinrude motor that went on the back of it. And so I think we completed the package. I went the next week, and that was that second week I became a Christian. Yeah.
I like that.
Most important week of my life.
Wow.
The second most important was when I asked a tennis instructor out on a date, and we were married.
Okay. I love
And
that.
have 3 kids.
I love that.
Been married 30 years. So 2 really important things that happened to me at Brookhill.
3 kids, ages of kids?
Kids' ages are 21, about to be 19, and 15.
Wow.
Boy, girl, girl.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're chasing you. We're 18 and 16.
Yeah,
so
y'all are right behind
we're
me.
trying to get there.
Yep.
So,
God bless.
and you took off from here because I want to major on the Brookhill stuff
Mhm.
just because just in talking with you, you have so much knowledge here, just from being camp director. But just wanted to kind of throw out just so many things from there. You did radio.
Yeah.
You did radio here and elsewhere, right?
Started the radio station here.
You started it here.
We started it. Tim and
Okay.
I started it together
Okay.
right out of college. So I went to the U of A, majored in broadcasting. Right out of college, came and worked for the school, which at that time was Applied Life
Right.
Ministries or Institute. And I taught there while doing all the application and doing all the work to build this radio station.
Wow.
And so I graduated in 86. So by 89, we went on the air.
Wow.
And I shifted from Applied Life more over to running the radio station. Did that for several years.
Did you still do camp at that time, or at some point
Not
did you kind of?
really. By that time, I had to pull back and focus on the station.
Because you had to be there. That wasn't a
It
seasonal
was all
thing.
the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was full time.
So what was your last summer at camp?
Let's see. That would have been probably my last summer of. No, it wouldn't be my last summer of college because I probably did a couple summers after that. So it would have been somewhere around 88.
Okay, so
Maybe that's a guess.
I literally got here in 89.
Oh, is that right?
So I would have,
Okay.
as a 3rd grade camper from Houston, Texas. So I would have.
Awesome.
And I remember
So Cato was
Tim-
after me.
But I remember
think, yeah.
Tim being around that 89 summer.
Well,
I know
he
that
may
because I
have
have a
been.
picture of him.
Yeah, he may have been coming over and just making
Okay.
sure that all was well.
Okay.
He was probably just checking to make sure
Brian was doing what he was
things weren't
supposed to.
falling apart or
That's
whatever.
right. That's right. Okay.
But yeah, that would have been probably the end of my time.
So I just
the
missed
camp.
you.
Yeah, you just missed.
And then you did radio.
Yeah.
From there, did you go to Colorado and work for Focus?
Yes, basically.
Which
there
was an unbelievable
There
experience.
was a brief stop in Little Rock. Got married.
Okay.
I worked about a year in Little Rock at
Okay.
Family Council, and then eventually I came back to that. But yes, a year there, and then to Denver.
Okay.
Went and got my master's at seminary there. Worked at the radio station, and a Christian radio station in Denver, and mowed lawns and did whatever I could to get through school. Really, my wife, Alfie, put me through school.
Because she's a nurse?
She's a nurse, yeah, and she worked at the Children's Hospital there. But then, yes, after a couple of years working in the radio station up there, I went to Focus on the Family, and I was in their public policy department working as the marriage and family policy analyst. So my job was to keep up with national marriage laws, family laws that were coming out of Washington, D.C., and keeping Dr. Dobson informed. That's when James Dobson was there, and keeping him informed on what was happening. There were several analysts like me who had our own topics.
Okay.
One was gambling, marriage and family, something else. And our job was to kind of track it, write on it, keep the constituency informed, and then keep Dr. Dobson informed so he could go on his radio program and talk about it.
So you did a lot of writing.
A lot of
for them.
writing. Yeah,
Okay.
I did a lot of writing there. And really, that's where I started to write most in terms of just, it wasn't a school paper.
Right.
So doing research for him, but it needed to be written in such a way that it wasn't really academic. It was for his letters that he would send out monthly. And that's also where I wrote The Season of Life, when I wrote the red tribute to the red T-shirt.
Yes.
About that time, I was in my late 30s, and I was thinking a lot about the old days and the old life. And I don't know, it just kind of started bubbling up inside me to write about my time as a camper and what counselors meant to me, and then the opportunity to turn around and do that for others. And it just it was one of the easiest things I've ever written. It just came out, and there wasn't even an occasion for it or anything. It just came out, and I sent it down here. I just said,
Right.
hey, y'all, here's this.
Yeah, that was in the staff room forever. If you remember that when Tyler was in there. So yeah.
Yeah, it was just my way of just getting a bunch of emotion just down on paper. It's just my big thank you. And really, even though I said it was for red T-shirts, which is a euphemism for the counselor staff,
Right.
really behind that is Don and Hetty. You know, it was my thank you for being there in a super vulnerable time,
right,
as a camper. And you know, I just, what if it wasn't there? That's what I kept thinking. Where would I be? You know, here I am sitting at Focus on the Family.
Right.
Which, for the Christian,
right,
who's interested in policy and politics and culture, I mean, that's kind of the White House.
Oh,
you
it's
know,
incredible.
so and I'm sitting there in this place, just going, what am I? What is John Thomas doing here?
Yeah.
This is insane. And you know, you just kind of backtrack, and go, oh, there's where the pendulum, you know, there's where the rocket just moved an inch or two before it took off.
Right.
And you know, it's either by the time it gets to the target, it's way different than, you know, what it was. So anyway,
Oh, it's so good.
I haven't cried about that in
Right.
a
Gosh,
lot of
yeah.
years. But anyway, that so yeah, Focus on the Family was phenomenal.
Yep.
I mean, it was just, as you can imagine, it was a very intense at that time. Bill Clinton was the president, and so Dr.
Sure.
Dobson was just on fire all the time, culturally, talking about all the cultural changes that were happening. He was prophetically saying that everything that we see now is
Sure.
going to happen, and we must do something. And the answer isn't totally in politics, because he was obviously speaking to parents too.
Right.
And so it was a really
The
exciting
family and the church.
family in the church.
Always, to me, create the politics.
And he was, many listeners won't know, but James Dobson was a real prophet in that era. He had that radio show. It was going everywhere. You couldn't turn on a Christian station and not hear it. And he was saying these things over and over and over again. And so it was fun and exciting, a little scary to be part of it. But it was a great experience for me.
I love that. And I love what you said, you know, why me? You know, I have so many young people, because I know young people are going to listen to this, but I say to so many young people, you know, I just want God to tell me what I'm going to be. And I always tell them is the destination is not the thing, it's the journey. I said, in this season of your life is always preparing you for the next season. And so that's why you looked back, because really the why me started back then. And that's what I'm always telling young people, because they see the, you know, like your wife's a nurse, or they see who you are now, you know, and they think, well, how do I get there? Well, you know, it's seasons in life all along the way.
Yeah.
That make us who we are.
It's if I were to put it in a phrase, I would say faithfulness in the little.
Come on.
And not perfection in every opportunity to be perfect or imperfect,
Right.
but it is, you know, it's faithfulness in little things, and really you're just stumbling. Honestly, most of life is just tripping, stumbling,
That's so good.
getting back up, going through the next door, and it seems extremely mundane
Sure.
while you're doing it. And honestly, it just kind of keeps being mundane. Really, it's just day in and day out. But then you pull back and you look over the larger story, and that's when you just kind of go, how in the world did that happen? And it's just God's hand in the midst of our foolishness most of the time. But if we can try to remain humble, try to be faithful, try to take the steps, you know, suddenly you look back and you go, how did that happen? You know.
I love that. And so just kind of go a little timeline here so we can get back to the camp stuff. So you went from Focus, you came back, did more family council stuff with Jerry Cox.
Yeah, pretty long time there doing public policy.
So just really in the family,
Yep.
I mean, that was just where you were, just trying to affect culture, trying to, you know, what's so funny is it doesn't matter who I talk to on the podcast. It's all the same.
Yeah.
They leave Brookhill, and as Hetty says, build your own Brookhill. I mean, you were literally just continue to try and affect lives.
Trying to.
Just want to help people, right?
Yeah, and really not being like, I'm going to go do this. It just was it just oozes out.
Right.
I mean, it's just like, this is who I am.
Right.
It's not so much what I'm trying to do. This is just the person I have become. And so this is just going to come out wherever I am. This is going to be what people are going to get when I'm there.
So good.
So yeah, fortunately for me, I've been privileged to find actual vocations that allowed for me to have that outlet.
Very mission-minded. Everything
Yeah.
you've done has been very mission-minded.
It has.
Right? Because you go from family council to...
Now, this sounds really heroic, but really it's me just looking for the next job and going, I've got to figure something out to get some money in this house.
Right.
But God in his graciousness and mercy allowed me to do things that were that felt pretty missional.
Yes.
So I don't want to make it sound like, I'm just trying to eat, David.
Right.
I'm just trying to eat. And but God has let me do some fun things to.
So you went from there to running your own camp, running Salgahatchee, right?
Yeah, that was a big deal for us because we by then we had all 3 kids.
Right. What a perfect time for your family.
Yeah, 3 young kids, and so we were able to kind of pick up and go do it. Live on the property that's around Morrilton, Arkansas. Probably nobody even knows where that is, but a couple hours north from where we are right here. And yeah, I walked into a really blank sheet of paper. There had been a lot of camp history at this place, but it had been more of a rental kind of camp situation where youth groups would come or churches would come in the summer, and you would provide space for them, and you would provide activities for them, and then they'd do their thing, and there was a small staff to take care of it. So I naturally, with my camp background, said I'd like to do what is known as the open enrollment idea, which kids sign up individually and come to camp. And so we kind of merged those things for a couple of years, but eventually it all became open enrollment, and that's where I really had to tap into the history, my camp history. And my wife, also, I should have said this a long time ago, she was a camper and camp counselor too, so we both brought that history to it. And but we immediately jumped into culture. I have learned over many years that culture is everything.
We were talking about this earlier. I want you to unpack this a little bit.
Yeah, I will. Work culture is the topic du jour in master's programs in business schools and doctorate programs. My son is studying, is working on his MBA at John Brown University, and the speakers that are coming into him are all talking about culture. That's the conversation, organizational, corporate culture, and how important it is to have a good one. And so not realizing that's what Don and Hetty were doing. They didn't have that language for it, but they were doing that. And so immediately I went to work building culture based on the Brookhill model. And I had picked up some other things along the way, naturally, but the core of it was humility, faithfulness in the little, honor. Those were sort of our three legs to our stool that we just started building into people with no background in camp.
Sure.
Or at least not the Brookhill model of camp. And so, wow, it takes time. And so we just had to dig and keep going and keep going. And right around the 5th or 6th year, we were there for a total of 10.
Okay.
We started seeing signs of that we didn't have to feel like we were starting at zero again every summer. Eventually, campers were coming up and becoming counselors. And so I remember our 8th summer was the first summer where the youngest camper when we started could have become a counselor.
Okay.
And when that generation came into staff, there was a real shift that I felt like, okay, now the lights are going on. Now people are getting it. It's not training muscle memory all over again. They understand these values, and I felt like things really began to explode. And then you're able to not have to spend all your life, all your hours talking about culture. You can finally do some other.
That's right.
So some of that just kind of starts happening naturally. The river is flowing, and everybody, now you can work on your paddling, expertise or whatever, because the momentum is going.
Right. So good.
Yeah, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal everywhere you go, and it's amazing to me when you find places that are big companies and they have huge turnover and nobody likes working there, and they haven't understood this yet. And Don and Hetty were doing it back in the 70s, not knowing that's what they were doing, but it is. And so yeah, we did camp for 10 years. And conference center, we ran in the off season, we ran a conference center too. Same thing though, I wanted culture to be part of that as well, in the housekeeping staff and in the maintenance staff and everything that we did. And so it wasn't just when kids were around, it was, what I wanted to do. But I'll say this too, David, I immediately began building it into my marriage and family right away.
So good.
And so I didn't have to wait until I showed up at a camp that was paying me to do it. This is built into my life. It's built into my understanding, faithfulness in the little, honor, all those things. I built into my marriage. We built it into our family and the way that we operate with each other. We're always asking our kids forgiveness for this or that. We're always, teaching them to honor. We're always using all that language. And I've definitely seen the fruit of that in our family culture.
That's such a paradigm shift from the way it used to be. And I don't know if we're looking at 20 years ago or whatever, where it's that, we were talking about this earlier, that command style of leadership, right? Where it's, I'm the mom and the dad, and it's because I said so, right? Whereas that connection element, right? Where it's, I'm trying to hear your heart. I want you to hear my heart. Hey, mom and dad aren't perfect either. Because if the leader or the boss or the mom and dad, if they're always perfect and always right, because kids aren't stupid. Kids know, or employees know, they're like, I think they missed it on that one right there. When you have that connection, right, and I think people today, especially Gen Z, right, especially even millennials, even more Gen Z, they're almost suspicious of leaders. Gen Z are. They're suspicious of the boss. They already go, the boss is trying to use me, right, which I get it. They need to learn how to be servant leaders too, just like Jesus talked about. But people want that connection. They want to feel like the boss is on their level. But it seems like if I do that, they're going to disrespect me. And I know even as parents, it seems like that. If I connect with my teen or I connect with my young person, they're going to disrespect me. And it's actually the opposite that happens, but it just counteracts how we feel that's going to happen, right? And so that's that wall that stops us from doing that.
And there's the phases of development of child rearing has all that weaved into it. There's some command times. We just got to do it this way. You are not going to play in the street.
That's right. My 5-year-old, we're not going to connect, right?
Yeah, we're not going to play in the street.
That's right.
That's just the way it is, and you can cry about it.
That's right.
But the idea is that over time, you are building credibility with the connection, so that when command is needed in an emergency situation, they go, this guy is for real. When he commands, we've learned to do it.
That's right.
It's not because out of authority or physical force, but he's got a pretty good track record.
It's good.
And so there's going to be times when the parent just says, y'all just going to have to trust me on this one. We're not going to that part of the city tonight.
Right.
Well, I've been there and I know. And so you just, I'm not an idiot. You know that I don't make, crazy demands of you guys. And I've done this with my kids. I've said there's certain parts of Little Rock. I don't care that there's a Target there.
Right.
When it's nighttime, you come home.
Right.
I don't want you there. And they don't whine and complain about it. They know.
They trust you.
Yeah, they trust me.
But that trust has to be built.
19 years of building that.
That's right. So good. And it's the same in the family. It's the same at a job.
Yep.
And if we could just get people to understand that, it's life-changing because no one wants to work.
When you start operating that way, people will come to you asking advice. People will say, "Okay, I see what's happening in your family. How have you done that? How are your kids like this?" Or maybe other little questions about their career and life journey and stuff like that. And they have observed something in you. They don't even know what the words are, but they act like you're wise or you're whatever. But really, it's just practicing some of these values over time and just say, I wish I could tell you that I just knew how to get those answers from God in the moment. But really, it's these values just kind of trying to walk out.
So good. So you went from Salkehatchie
Yep.
to where you are now.
Where I am now, which is I am a fund developer. I'm the managing director of the Arkansas 4-H Foundation, which is a nonprofit in the state that is the nonprofit foundation for the 4-H program in Arkansas. And so I raise money for the 4-H program, for scholarships for 4-Hers, and it is a very there's a lot of shared DNA in 4-H with kind of the faith-based world, even though it is not a faith-based
Sure.
program. It's a nonprofit program, but most of the people in it are salt of the earth, faith people, and so, the vibe is very similar. The people are, I love working with them, and it feels very at home to me. I never did 4-H as a kid. Did you?
No,
I didn't either.
my kids did.
Oh, they did?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, it was at my school. It was at my high school at Lake Hamilton, but I never really crossed paths with it, so I had to learn the whole thing.
Well, my kids have done the rodeo side
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
I think there's a rodeo side
Yeah,
to it.
big horse program. But anyway, that's
Yeah.
what I'm doing now, and I love it. Yeah.
But, I mean, I look at your life. I mean, you've literally done family and kids, and Alfie works at Children's. So I mean,
She's been in children's.
that's kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no matter where it's been family and kids, I mean,
Must say something about how we feel about adults. Maybe. No.
That could be it. So I love that. So that is your bio. That was a short.
Sorry about that.
No, I love it.
That went a long time.
I love it. But here's my favorite thing about having you, Teresa, Hetty, the different ones, because before my time. I mean, Teresa's before my time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love learning from you guys. Like Tyler sits there and he says his favorite are you guys because Tyler's a Brookhill nerd.
Oh, yeah.
That's what he is. He loves Brookhill through and through. I mean, you crying about camp, that's Tyler all day long.
100%.
Tyler's the one in the meetings that raises a stink when we want to change something.
Right. All right, Tyler. Where you going?
We're evil. I mean, y'all are destroying Brookhill. I mean, that's what he
Yes.
says. He didn't say it like that, but it's how he says it every time. So he loves this. So I know you have a list of stories here. Tell us some fun stories. Help us know what was camp like. What were some of the things that y'all did? Because here's what I love. No matter who I talk to, even if the programs were different, it's the same heart through and through, right? Because it's heady.
Absolutely. It's the
Brookhill is
culture.
heady.
Yeah, it's the
Brookhill is
culture.
heady. They don't know heady today, but they do know heady, right?
I kind of thought you guys by now would have a bronze statue of me and Hetty out there in front.
It's being made right
It is,
now.
Is that you're going to surprise me with that
Yeah,
today?
Yes, that's right.
You want to hear some stories?
Yes, we want to hear some stories.
All right. Well, there's a lot. So the story about how I came, I think, is always a creative story about my mom, sort of bartering
Yes, I love
with
that.
a flat bottom boat.
We might still have that boat. You never know.
Yeah. Well, it was here the whole time I was here.
Okay.
I remember when I became a counselor, there was an activity called jet skis.
Okay.
And these were the old original jet ski looking things from Kawasaki. I think that was the brand. And they had a huge engine on the front, and you would get on they had a little platform that you got on your knees behind, and it felt like a motorcycle a little bit, but the gas was a squeeze thing. So it sort of combined a four-wheeler and a motorcycle or whatever, but you didn't straddle this one. So this wasn't a wet bike. If you were really good, you could stand, and the thing would raise up, and we would have we would have campers come and say, "Oh yeah, I've got one of these at home." There was always that camper that had one at home. It was either a go-kart or
it's so
it was
true.
a jet ski. I don't need to hear this.
My
I got
dad's
this.
got that gun.
Yeah, we got this. We got to do this all the time.
Yeah, my dad has a tank.
Right.
So.
That's right.
Right. So anyway, but there was this. So when I think back, I think I can't believe we would just fire these dudes up and send kids out on the lake in them. 4 kids on on jet skis going around out there. So there was this one time in particular I remember. There's a little island out there in Big Lake. Is it still there?
Yeah, Carnival Island.
Yeah, Carnival Island.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
so and it gets the weeds that kind of grow up on the edges.
Yep.
The grass that grows up, you can't mow because it's sort of in water. And I just remember her taking this big long circle, and I'm sort of in my mind, figuring out how this angle is going to work out. It didn't look good, so I started screaming from the shore. There's only hey, no, slow down, because her arc was headed right to the edge of that thing. And finally, all the kids on the shore are watching it. We're all watching. Our eyeballs are wide open, and she just disappears into the weeds. And you hear the change in the engine.
Right.
It's like wah, and then just nothing. And so it felt like an eternity went by. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, wham! She comes flying out of the other side of the weed bed. It's like. Sort of like these airboats,
Right.
down in the Cajun territory or
Right.
whatever it is in the wetlands. She just came flying out of there, and I just thought, okay, she's on it still. It's still going, and she, made her big circle and came back in, and she pulled in, and she's just covered in weeds, but with the biggest grin on her face. It was just the most fun she had ever had, and I told her that was not actually part of the activity.
Right.
I'm glad you had fun, but don't anybody else do that. So that was kind of one of many jet ski things. Often that story, it's the same as go-karts probably. When people are coming in at the end of their ride and their brains have just forgotten to stop.
Right.
And so there were several times that those jet skis would just hit the edge and just come flying up on the thing. Eventually, though, it would stop because you're on land.
Right.
And they just don't go as fast on land. Here's another funny story. So Gary Perry and I were running camp at this time. We had a new guy. He didn't have a whole lot of history with Brookhill, but Jace, he kind of came in and he was great guitar player. He played guitar a lot, and I guess we needed one that summer. I'm not sure why he was there, but he was there. And he was about JC age, but he was not living in the cabins. He was somewhere else. And so we had finished up what we called show night.
Okay.
That's another story I could tell about show night. But anyway, it finished up. Everybody was headed back to the cabins, and Gary and I are down here at the pavilion just talking, and Jace is there. And he said, well, are you guys going to the JC party? And Gary and I were like, is there a JC party? No, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We always go to the JC party. Where is it? Where is it this time?
Yeah.
And
This time, I like that.
yeah, he started looking at us, and it began to dawn on him. He goes, "Oh no!" And I said, "Yeah, let's go."
Yeah.
So we went to the JC party, which was just a small circle of some radical JCs before they went into their cabins, and it was dark, so you couldn't really see who was there. And this is why I'm telling the story, because it's so funny. Have you had Monty Mansour on the podcast?
I have not had Monty, but
Okay.
we got to get it.
Get him. Hilarious guy.
Yep.
He was a junior counselor at the time. And so we're
Was he
gathered-
the one that ratted? He didn't.
no,
That was Jace.
he-
yeah.
Jace was the one that
Okay, that's right.
didn't know that he was ratting everybody out. So we gather up, walk up, and so everybody could see that Gary and I are coming up, and Jace is all embarrassed, and so we were like, yeah, hey, all right, this is fun. And then out of the back, this voice goes, wow, it's a good thing Monty didn't come. It was Monty. back there saying that, but it was in the,
So Monty.
it was in the dark,
so Monty.
so he knew we couldn't see him.
Yep.
He said something like that. Well,
Yeah.
Monty was really smart to say no to this. He said something like that. So it kind of eased the fall for all those guys.
I love that. Tyler worked with Everett, Monty's son Everett.
Oh, is that right?
Everett
yeah.
and Emma both worked with
Just as
Tyler.
clever.
Just
They're-
hysterical.
Yeah, they're just
very
like that.
clever.
Clever
Monty's
Yes.
Monty's comedy is so clever. I'm reminded of another time that we were sitting there and there was some piece of furniture that had one of those tags on it that said for consumer use only or something like that. It's just the stuff that comes on furniture tags or for consumer consumption only or something like that. And somebody was saying, well, somebody made a joke about only a consumer can sit on, or something, I don't know, but he said something like, we're somehow eating it came up, and he said, if you're the consumer, you're the only one who can eat this mattress or something like that. Just constantly
Monty,
that stuff was just rolling
yeah.
off of him all the time. Show night was our last night.
Okay, Teresa explained that this is Carnival replaced.
Yeah, for
this.
those that didn't hear Teresa's program, it was a
Yeah.
big, long skit night. The only way I could survive that week after week was to treat it like my own TV program. And so I just acted like I was David Letterman, and I just came out and hosted the thing every week and kind of entertained myself mostly. I'm not sure anybody else enjoyed it, but I sure did. That's what show night was. I just wanted to mention that. I was probably maybe one of my favorite things I enjoyed doing was being Mary and Sam. So we had a Sadie Hawkins night, and when I was a camper, Sadie Hawkins night, you go down to the field. Each guy cabin comes out one at a time. It's terrifying. All the girls chase down guys to marry. And
It was almost like the firing squad. You'd bring out
my
12
gosh.
guys, and you'd unleash
terrifying.
hundreds of,
Terrifying. And at the time, you would think, gosh, this is going to be bad for a kid to be left out there not being chased.
Right.
And that's when you engage counselors to go, no, be on the lookout for that, all right? So mostly my years were, I was being caught by counselors because I was the guy. I was the guy left out there, all right? Somebody help me, Then the loving counselor would come and marry me. But when I first sat down and watched your father-in-law, Tim, come out and do Mary and Sam, I immediately knew my calling in life. I mean, at that moment, I said, that is what I'm going to do. And finally, there came a time for me to do it. And I loved doing that character because it's a character.
Right.
And it's a show. I mean, you're performing. And I just, listen, David, if you knew what a wallflower I was before camp, I would never get up in front of anybody and do anything like that. But show night as a camper, doing skits or devotion skits or whatever, all those things, that I would ever get up in front of people and entertain them the way like that at Mary and Sam is just an impossible thought to anyone who would have known me as a kid. But I look forward to that every week. Maybe a little too much. Maybe
But I love that. I love how you talk about people. Hetty would always talk about that, right? Drawing the greatness that is inside of everybody, right? There's more in you.
Oh,
and
gosh,
to draw
yeah.
it out of them and to see them go to another level.
Yeah.
And our counselors do that from their first summer to a little bit shy to their, we try and encourage them to do 4 summers because by that 4th summer, I mean, they're just a totally different person. Hetty would talk about being free to be yourself, right? Being free to be, because in order for you to be Mary and Sam,
impossible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being free to laugh at yourself. I think one of the things that camp built into me was be vulnerable to laugh at yourself, because all the counselors are doing that.
Yeah.
They are all laughing at themselves. All of the fun was built around that, not about putting someone else down so that you could have some esteem about yourself. All the counselors were masterful at poking fun at themselves in the skits and all that sort of thing. And that really registered with me. It helped me learn how to go into a group of people and help things ease by, pointing at yourself, pointing out, funny faults about yourself or things like that. And it's terrifying to a kid to walk into a situation where people are making fun of others.
Mm.
It's absolutely horrifying to walk into that. It's such an unsafe space, to use a modern term.
Sure.
But one of the things that we drilled in and was drilled into us at Brookhill, and we drilled it in at the camp that we were at, is that this is the safest place any child could ever walk into.
Mm.
You are going to be the bunt of the joke.
Yep. That's powerful.
You're going to be the brunt of the joke, and you've got to learn to be comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the joking has to be appropriate. You can't really pick on someone's real insecurity
Right.
and beat them
Right.
beat them up over it.
Right.
But find something that you're okay poking fun at yourself about, or being silly. The fun was always silly. That's another thing that Brookhill taught me, was that there's appropriate fun and there's inappropriate fun, and the whole world is full of inappropriate fun. And so campers would come, and I'm sure you're feeling this now, that the only fun that they know of is whatever fun the world has.
Right.
And so it takes them a while to get into why this is funny.
Right.
And why this is fun.
It's more of a mature fun. And here you get to be a kid.
Yeah.
Which is what you are when you come to camp.
Right.
And because the counselors are being kids too.
That's the key.
That's the key. They're not too cool. Whoa, the people who should be too cool are not too cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 15. I mean, we get kids as they're 15, first time here. And by the end, they're able to laugh at this, and they love it.
Yep.
They love it.
And that's why they say, I don't want to go back.
Right.
Because it is a little slice of kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
What if the kingdom we had it every day?
Childlike faith.
What if it was kingdom come?
Right.
It's a taste of that.
Heart like a child. That's what Jesus said, right? You got to be like a child. But the thing is, there's none of this.
Oh,
there's no phones.
Which is the new challenge for camp.
Yeah. But they love it. Most of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some that really struggle with their phones, but for the most part, they love it.
Yeah.
They love putting that thing away. It's freedom.
It's freedom. Yeah, so anyway, the silliness part, the comedy silliness part of camp, I loved.
Yeah.
And I loved getting to I loved making people laugh. I loved, it was a big, huge dopamine boost for me to see people laughing at dumb things I was doing. And it was me going, okay, this is what was done for me. And I want to do that for others. And I do that for my kids, too. They kind of roll their eyes a little bit at it now.
Which, before you move on, I got to see you do Mary and Sam one time.
Did you really?
My wedding. Do you remember that? You and Gary Perry did Mary and Sam at the rehearsal dinner in the tent outside Tim's house.
Yes,
I only
that's
know
right.
that. I only know that, not to say it was just so memorable 20 years ago.
Yeah,
I know
I've
that
even
because
forgotten.
Melissa and I finally, a month ago, watched that video for the first time.
Oh, gosh.
And we're like, oh, my goodness, they did that.
Did we do the vows? Did we do some of the stuff?
You did all of it.
Oh,
and then to watch my buddies who were all camp counselors see you do that, you and Gary, they loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a cool thing. So I did get to see you do that one
I kind
time.
of dusted that off a little bit, too, whenever you guys started doing Carnival Night. You may have been a camper when Tim was doing Carnival Night down there. And we'd go down there and sing a little Branson show thing was going on. We'd do some jokes, and I kind of dusted off the overalls and brought Mary and Sam on stage down there. That was a lot of fun, too. Little other things about camp. I learned to play the drums at camp, which was it's the first drum set I'd ever seen. It was one of those things that I saw people playing drums, and I thought, that looks like fun. And one of the counselors taught me how to play, and that has been passed down to my son, who is exceptional. Now, I just, I never took lessons. I'm just like, don't ka. And he's like a jazz drummer. He's minoring in music, and his love for that, I kind of bought him a little kit when he was little. He was doing pots and pans in the kitchen. But I'd like to say that started a little bit at Brookhill, but I don't know about that. I would do. You guys still do cabins are still in charge of a devotional evening,
Yes.
morning. Still do that.
Yes. Don't do the skits anymore.
You don't do the skits. Okay.
Because of how the volume of kids in the cabin.
Right.
You got
Right.
20 kids in every cabin. That's hard to.
I did a skit once that was a music video.
Okay.
And so when you've been a counselor for so long, eventually you're like, I've got to do something else. And
Right.
so there was a song out by Russ Taff, "Not Gonna Bow," I think was the name of the song, and it was about not bowing to idols and all this kind of stuff. And we built an idol out of igloo not ice chests, but igloo drink things, and we had an idol, and we had the campers in our cabin act that out and then destroy the idol and everything. And we're cranking the song in the background the whole time. That's my most memorable morning devotion skit. And that's another thing. Whenever I became assistant camp director, getting up after the cabins did their thing and wrapping it up.
Right.
Terrifying. Even after I had all that time, it's like, gosh, every day, twice a day, I've got to get up and say something meaningful based on what I just saw.
Right.
So you talk about
You didn't prepare. Right.
No, it had to be like off the cuff, and that was another thing that was a confidence builder for me. And it's a safe space, again, to
Yeah.
practice.
Everybody's echoing you. They're like, "That's good."
Well,
It may not have been good.
I'm not sure that they even did that.
Okay.
Sometimes it was probably how much longer, but you got to work out.
Sure.
So it's a time where you can work out and you can practice some things. And even campers were given that opportunity at times on doing skits. You got a line. I remember having a line and going, "You're crazy. I'm not going to stand up in front of these people and say these things." And this hit me a second ago, and I want to say this about Brookhill too. And we tried to do this up on the mountain as well. Not every kid is an extrovert.
Sure. Good.
Everybody's
Good.
wired differently, but camps can tend to really lean extrovert because camp leaders are typically extroverts. That's why they've enjoyed that world, because
That's really good.
They love people. They want more and more and more people, and so they're drawn to this type of ministry. And so, however, there's going to be a percentage of campers that are introverts or maybe even ambiverts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've taken these tests as an adult. I'm pretty highly introvert. This stuff is easy, but I still get nervous in front of crowds. And so one of the things as a camper that I look back on and say, wow, that was really important, was that there were a few counselors who were also introverts who oftentimes would be overlooked as the right staff person.
I agree. Yeah, this guy, yeah.
Because
I'm an introvert, yeah.
Right. So someone who's not just energy all the time, when you're interviewing camp counselors, you might go, gosh, this guy's a little boring. But it's not. Sometimes those are deep waters. And they're running in there deep, and here's how God uses that for the introvert kid who comes, who also feels like this is a tad overwhelming. There's 1,000 people here. They're all screaming this cheer, and I am a little overwhelmed by this. And there would be counselors that would recognize that in me and come over to me and put their arms around me, go play ping pong, go out to the putt-putt course, which was my savior as a camper. Get me out of the fray.
Right.
And get me over here and talk to me. Talk to me on the wagon. That was me, and I really wanted to highlight that for whatever it's worth.
I love that.
There's a lot of introverted kids, maybe even more now than ever before, because they're sort of, with the pandemic and whatever else and the screens and stuff, they're kind of by themselves a lot, more than they used to be.
That's a great point.
But don't overlook that counselor who comes to you who's introverted and not a real screamer. They will connect with someone. So I always tried to find, different types of counselors that, the love and all the culture and everything. They had to buy into all that stuff. But there's all types of kids coming too. And I wanted to have an array for every type of kid, Anyway.
Love that.
Oh my gosh. Another epic moment was on a 2-week. Do you do 2-week sessions anymore?
We brought one back.
You brought one back.
We
Awesome.
end the summer with it now.
So glad to hear that. So we had a couple.
2-week is the best. Can I do a shameless plug, right?
2-week is amazing.
It is.
It is amazing because by that, if you've got the endurance for it. Now, some kids are ready to go at 1 week, go home.
Sure.
And that's all right. But there are some kids that are just getting going.
Right.
Not just from a fun standpoint, but they're getting going in the culture, and they want it to wear off on them a little bit more, and then they just want more fun.
Right.
And they don't want to leave their friends and all that kind of stuff. But so we had a 2-week session, and eventually you're like, what are we going to do every? So we got the 1 week plan, but we can't just repeat it in week number 2, at least in the evenings.
Right.
So, you add the more stuff, the Olympics and things like that. I always loved all that stuff. But we had a night that we just invented called Beach Party.
Okay.
And I got this idea from a fraternity up at Fayetteville. I was not in it or in a fraternity, but they had a beach party. And they hauled in to the basement of their fraternity, or maybe the first floor, sand. Dump truck loads.
No.
And you walked in there, and there's a foot of sand indoors. What? And that never left me from the time I ever saw that. And so Gary and I think it was Gary and I talking about, it had to be Gary because he was the camp director. I said, I have this idea to do a beach party, and I think we need sand in the pavilion. Let's fill it up. And he's like, no, you're insane. I go, imagine them coming down. And just there it is, that's our promotion.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, let's do an 1/8. Okay, sold. So we went down, and however much that is, I don't even know how many dump trucks it was, but we got a couple dump trucks full of sand. The idea was that when we were done with it, it goes straight out the back to the volleyball.
That's right. That was sitting right
net
there.
that was there at the time. So that's how I sold it anyway. And so we had a beach party, and we had sand. We set up a little photo booth back there in the sand and everything. It wasn't a whole lot. It was really underwhelming when I saw it. Now, this looks like a thimble full compared to the pavilion.
Right.
But anyway, it was a lot of fun. But anyway, so the beach party, the main event was a concert. And we had enough guys in the council ring band that were almost good enough to do some Beach Boys songs.
Okay.
So we put together a little Beach Boy or some surfing songs for this. And in our entry, Gary had this Jeep, this old Jeep, and this thing sounded like it had no muffler at all. I mean, you'd start that thing up, and it would just scream right out of the manifold. And so we had snuck that thing around the back of the pavilion. Do you still face the kitchen when you sit down?
Yes.
Is that still the stage during summer?
No, actually, so we're in the EC now. We're in the event center. We're in the new building.
Oh, okay. Anyway, back in the day, the pavilion was open, what we called in the back.
Right.
And all the campers, when we gathered, faced the kitchen. Sat down.
Yep.
So we had this worked out with whoever introed us. Did a big intro. They had everybody scoot out of the aisle, and they introduced us, and Gary fired that thing up in the back. It just about gave everybody heart attacks. And he just four-wheel drive that thing right up into the pavilion. It was like, you two had entered the building. It was screaming, and then they heard us, and it wasn't quite as great as they thought it was going to be. But, dude, that entry.
Right.
And isn't really that all that matters?
Oh, yeah.
It's when you got to come in, look. It's like championship wrestling, which we did some of that too, actually. What else? I mean, I've got stories. I could go on. I don't want to go on
But
entirely.
I love it because, Tyler, you can see where a lot of these things came from.
Oh, yeah. I remember Butch and Susie came in a vehicle from the back of the pavilion once, probably 100% inspired. I'm sure it happened 2 or 3 times that they remembered something happened, and then they remembered something happened, and yeah, it's cool.
I mean, you can see all that. I do remember we did a beach party in early 2000s during the 2 week. Obviously, that probably came from doing that. You know, it could have been Tim reminded us that you did that, and I remember we put a little sand in the pavilion. You know, but same thing. We had at the time the volleyball.
Yeah, you could
court
just
was
dump
right
it
there. That's
right out the back when
So
you're
I'm
done with
sure
it.
that was Tim's idea because he's like, hey, we need sand anyway. So
And,
smart.
you know, some of that stuff was, you know, kind of selfishly entertaining for ourselves.
Sure.
But other piece of it was to do some things that also energize the counselors a little bit because they've been seeing a lot of repetition too. And so
Right.
once in a while, we'd just surprise them with some things. And it would rev them back up again,
So
you
good.
know, and they often would be the ones coming up afterwards and say, that was absolutely epic. And you could see the energy level just kind of lift a little bit
Right.
and surprise them with some things like that. But
Well, you know, as leaders, we say it's not, you know, it's not about us. It's not about us. But in reality, you need those moments to reinvigorate your team. We tell them don't tire of repetition, but we know that we're natural people and we need that shakeup. And so that's so good for the camp director or whatever, just to cut in the council. Oh, I didn't see that coming.
yeah, and I will often, even when I'm doing devotions for kids up on the mountain, you know, I would use comedy that was just a little bit beyond them.
Sure.
Well, it wasn't anything inappropriate.
Right.
It's just they didn't even know what I was talking about. Just one little thing.
Right.
Just so the counselors would know, I'm
Yeah.
with you. I'm here with you. I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And we're just going to zoom on past that. But I see a few grins coming out there and just
Yeah.
make sure they're paying attention to what I'm saying. And, you know, they'll come up afterwards. I don't remember what you talked about, but that was funny when you said so-and-so.
Right. So it's so true. Yeah. I loved your talk. What part about it? The joke you made.
The joke
Okay,
you made.
That's not the point
Yeah.
of what I was saying,
Yeah.
but that happens every time I talk. I'm always thinking, they got it. They got it. They're
Yeah.
going to give me that line that I was, you know, God gave me when I was
We
preparing.
think that, don't
Yeah,
we?
I've never gotten the line. I've never gotten the line.
So I mean, there's a lot of stories. I will conclude it with I just the whole package was such an impact on me, David, in my whole life, marriage, family, the way I've tried to conduct myself in every work situation that I've been in and every relationship I have. It all, so much of it started here, and really I was coming from at that point, it had become a single family just right before I came here. And so the concept of fatherhood leadership and I mean, my family was not, they were fine. Nobody was beating me or anything like that. My mom's doing the absolute heroic. And really, she's the hero behind it all for me because she worked it out for me to be able to come. You know, she's the one that was working the deal. She saw what I needed, and then she made it happen for me every time after that. But for me, camp was my family. Camp was my parents. Camp was the main influence on my life in that respect, and it goes on today.
It's so good, John. I absolutely love, you know, hearing, because I mean, this is what we're focused on today. We do this thing now called the Bro Zoom, that we do Zooms, so we're utilizing that. That's kind of popped up from 2020. We do 8 weeks in the spring with guys. We've done it the last 2 years, and the guys are eating it up, you know, because we are really seeing in our culture. You know, in our culture, I don't know, the feminist movement or whatever it is, but we've told girls, you can do it. You're amazing. You have giftings. And they can, and they are. But we've stopped saying that to the guys, almost to the point that if you're a guy, you're not amazing, you're toxic or whatever. Right. And I get it. There are guys out there that aren't good guys, okay? But that doesn't mean guys are bad. And so we've really tried to be that fatherhood for these guys because they need it. But what's interesting is how timeless it is. You needed it just like they need it today. It's almost like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun, right?
Still need it.
They still need it. And it's such a focus. And I know our girls, I'm not saying the girls are perfect and don't need it. Our girls are depositing into the girls big time. You know what I mean? But the guys in our culture, what you had, that was my story. The Simon Knightons, the Brian Catos. You know, I played tennis with Brian. I played tennis with him last night. We were up actually right down the street from your house at the club. And Brian was such a big part of my life, but it was probably because you were such a big part of his life, and you were such a big part of his life because Gary and Tim and Hetty and Don, and it's almost like Jesus taught us how to make disciples that make disciples, and really that's all we're doing here. This isn't anything new, right? This isn't anything
new. It's not, but it's a genius discipleship maker. And I wanted to mention this during the show, and it's this. I've been around ministry stuff all over, local church, everywhere. I've yet to find anything close to what camp accomplishes in discipleship making. There's no better program.
Wow.
In my experience. Now,
Sure.
there may be something out there that I just don't know about, but I am turning 59 this year, and I've seen a lot.
Okay.
And here's what I've decided is kind of the secret sauce of camp, if it's done in this style anyway, that everyone who comes has one stage up that they can look at and see a vision for where they could be in a year or
So
two,
true.
even if it's a camper. So I'm a third grade camper, but I'm looking at the fourth or fifth grade camper in my cabin going, okay, well, there's a vision. You hope it's a good kid, but everybody, so here it starts with whoever the senior counselor is or whatever, and then it's down to the junior counselor, and then it's the older campers where that's where it's really starting to click, is that last 1 or 2 year campers, because they're thinking about a red T-shirt at that point. But even fifth graders think about it. They think about the staff shirt. And so the discipleship there is unlike anything I've ever seen. And no offense to the local church, maybe there's a local church doing it, but rarely have I ever seen, well, I've never seen it. I've never seen college and high school kids helping out in the middle school or elementary school level, being counselor type kids, helping make it happen for the little kids, because you would be that little kid's hero if you did that, because that's how it is at camp. It's just a bunch of heroes running around in their mind. And so that's discipleship. The staff, you and the other leadership are discipling the senior counselors, and they're discipling kind of the junior counselors, and it just sort of, all the campers are being discipled, and then every year they move up a notch, and they have a vision to keep going and keep going and keep going. And what I would say to those who desired to be that, I would say, look, if you can't love your little brother and sister, but say you want to come here and love little kids, you're missing the point.
So good.
Don't do that. The whole idea is that you are learning to love everyone who's around you. And, we take kids, we take youth groups on missions trips. High schoolers, we take them on a missions trip, and they go to Belize, or they go to Guatemala, or wherever they go, and they play soccer with the little kids at the orphanage or wherever, and they just are heroes to those kids for that week. And they come home, and immediately their church puts them back in their age groups. They segregate everybody by age group, so you're never exposed. You're never exposed to a young fifth grader. And I've always just scratched my head at that. Why do we do that? Let's go to another country and play soccer with those fifth graders.
Interesting.
But segregate when we come home. There's so much power in that older kid helping. There's so much. Because look at this, David. You bring a third or fourth or fifth grader in. You to them are like ancient.
Right. I'm 60 or 70.
Yeah, they don't even know. Think about your teachers when you were a third grader.
Oh, they were old.
All old ladies.
Right.
Then you go back to your high school reunion, and they're like 50.
Right.
Wait, what a minute. Oh, you were newlywed? Oh, that's weird. But it's too far for them. True. It's too far for them to go, you're like my dad. you're too far away down the road. I can't act like you. I can't be as good as you.
Right.
You're a professional good person.
That's good.
You get paid to be good. So, but if they have a 7th grader, or if they have a 9th grader, and we could do a whole show on this. I'm not gonna.
No, this is great. Yeah.
Beat it to death. But that is the little secret ingredient of camp discipleship. Most camps, maybe not most camps. I know Brookhill, and we did it too. We integrate the ages.
Right.
Many do not.
I actually don't think most camps do this.
I don't think they do either. In fact, I think most don't.
Because I have parents that'll call and say, "Okay, now how does that work?" And it's foreign to them because, like you said, church, school, like where else would you have that? But that's where you get the cattiness, because you compete with your own age group.
Right.
I'm not competing with somebody older than me, right? In same way, I'm not competing with someone younger than me. If I play basketball with someone, that's a little kid, I'm helping them score. I'm not trying to beat them, right? So that automatically I'm trying to be a leader. And that's that family style that Hetty created.
Yep.
And when I'm talking to a parent on the phone, I'm always like, I don't, just trust us. I was a camper in this and it works. And they're always like, yeah, okay. But it's just so foreign to them.
Absolutely foreign. It's foreign because everywhere else is segregated. Schools are segregated, obviously. I mean, there's some good reasons for all of that.
Sure.
But I love that Hetty said, this is how families are, so why don't we be that?
But think about the old one-room schoolhouse.
Well, yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
Way back in the day.
Right.
And those people were really smart.
It's a genius discipleship program.
It is.
I believe in it. It was a hill that I would have died on in terms of the way we did our camp up north from here. And it's one of the secret sauces, but it does take a long time to get people to get it,
right?
Because it is so uncool to be with the little kids. But what I would tell the older campers as we'd pull them aside and have these conversations with them was, if you can't get there, you'll never get to where the staff shirt is, because that is the core of it.
That's it.
The core of it is making sure that a 3rd grader has the best week of their life, and they're in college. So imagine the stretch that is for them. But when you begin to understand the kingdom, and you begin to understand the Savior saying, let the little kids come, and then everything we do in the church and school is keep the little kids away. It's shocking, really, when you think about that's the way that we do it. And I understand the practicality of it. It is harder to mix. It's work.
Right.
Families are work.
Right. Yeah.
It's harder to do it that way. It's just so much easier just to go send the little ones there, put the older ones here. But yes, that creates sometimes that toxic culture that when you mix it up is gone.
That's right.
Right? And these little girls finally have a big sister that they don't have at home. And the impact that older 9th grade girl, 10th grade girl, whatever, can have, they don't understand the power of them right there. Huge. That kid's going to remember their name for their life. I do.
Oh, it's so true. So I'm going to lunch. There's a guy in Little Rock, guy in El Dorado. We were campers together. They were younger than me. We're going to lunch together. I mean, that's, but the lesson is it's not about me anymore, because we're born selfish people. And these college students, it's not about them. And this 9th grader is learning that, okay, they're seeing this college student, it's not about them. Okay, I'm going to try that just because I like them. And when they do that, they have the week of their life in the 9th grade. It's a different week of their life than in the 3rd grade.
Sure.
And they'll tell you it's better.
It's a different joy.
Better.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it's an eternal.
It
You're tapping into the kingdom.
It is. Okay, John, we want to play a game?
I'm ready.
All right. We want to play a game here. All right, Carson and Tyler are going to get it ready.
This is for those who are still listening to the podcast at this
everyone
at this point.
No one tuned out. I know they did. We gained listeners as it went on. So all across the nation. All right, so we got a Brookhill game because it's a Brookhill podcast. And basically you're going to get 3 categories to choose from. And you can cross over. It's not like one, 2, or 3. It's Brookhill Camp Songs, okay? And this doesn't have to be current. You can get, the thing about you is you could make everything up and we would have no idea. That you're pretty creative. So you'd be like, oh, yeah, we sing that song, you know. So songs, cabins, and activities. And once again, I mean, it can be activities that you had in your day. And so you've got 30 seconds. And I'm gonna keep setting it up to give you a second to really dredge those out there, but camp songs, and it could be devos, it could be council ring, it could be anything, but camp songs, camp cabin names, boys and girls, and then camp activities. So you can just name as many as you can. That's the goal. Name as many as you can in 30 seconds, and there will be a timer up here when you can begin. And we can go. All right.
All right, here we go. I'm going to choose activities.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to start at the pavilion, which is girls sports, boys sports, pellet riflery, archery, tennis. We did golf. Then we did a thing called, I can't remember what it's called, so I'm going to move on. So going down the hill, we got fun swim, a small lake, big lake, horseback, go-karts, jet skis in my day, bumper boats. I guess they're skiing now. I'll do that. We had...
He got to 14. All right.
Did
14.
I win?
No.
Dang.
You're very descriptive, though. So I know a lot more, than the other people who just rambled them off.
That's
so.
right. But who was it
Hodgepodge.
that got to 30?
That's what I was trying to think of. Hodgepodge.
Who was it that got over 30?
Anna Hampson, 34.
Anna Hampson, 34.
Activities?
No, between the three.
Oh.
She bounced
so
back
I
and
could
forth.
have gone out of my...
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
So here
brother.
is the
I didn't understand.
leaderboard. You were down here with the Maddie Dars of the world.
Oh, God. That is
But
embarrassing.
that's Lindsay Perry. That's Lindsay Perry right there in second place. So
Way to go.
that is pretty impressive. Hey, John, I do have a little gift for you as you go here.
It's my parting gift.
You're actually the first. We're just starting this right here. We've got you one of our new camp T-shirts. Get you sporting some Brookhill
Sweet.
merch, and there you go. Throwing that out there. Got you a Brookhill mug.
Let's go.
And then finally, the goat of all cabins, the Mustang sticker right there.
I may cry again.
Yes. That was where it was at right there. So
That was where it was at, man.
yeah.
There's others that would disagree with us, but for you and me, this
I
was
was a
it
Mustang.
Right here. Oh, wait, no. One more story?
No, yeah, let's
the
go.
best. This is the story
on.
I was holding off for.
Okay.
Honor cabin.
Honor cabin.
Mustang honor cabin.
Okay.
So back in the day, one of the ways that we tried to build a little respect culture was to do a thing called honor cabin.
Okay.
And so it was you'd pitch this first night, with your kids. You'd say, okay, we have this thing called honor cabin, and it's only awarded if everybody kind of loves each other and honors each other. We work together, team, blah, blah, blah. You'd really give them a good spiel. And usually, they'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm in. Well, this was a 2-week session, and these guys were not in. They were not. And I was kind of proud of what a successful honor cabin creator I was. Not these guys. I don't know. It was just one of the Lord just said, this one's for you, JT. You're going to just build character this week. So me and my junior counselor, we just were like, oh my gosh, this is wild. These guys, we just couldn't do it. And so, a 2-week session is going on. And the way these things, when it was announced, it was a big deal. And it would kind of happen one at a time. Like, here it is on the first day of the second week, and the walkers, I want to announce they got an honor cabin. And it was just mayhem.
Okay.
All right, just mayhem. And also this had been pitched, during orientation to the whole camp. And they would say, our goal is to do an honor camp. And that means every cabin gets honor cabin.
Right.
So the pressure builds. Right, because then there'll be 3 more, and then 4 more, and then, pretty soon you're getting down to like 3 cabins left. You're coming down to the last couple days at camp. Everyone's looking at you. All the other counselors are looking at you like, come on, man. Dude. You always have an honor cabin. I'm just looking at them going, no, it ain't happening. I'm telling you. So then it, 3 more, 2 more. One more left. Me, Mustangs. Listen, we have talked to this cabin every day. They're asking me why we're not an honor cabin yet. They've been asking for 2 weeks. Why are we an honor cabin?
Right.
And so came to the last day, and I think Gary was the camp director at the time, and he was putting pressure on me. He's like, man, we ain't had an honor cabin all summer long. I mean, it would be nice. And I go, do you want me to just fudge it? Or do you want me to be real? He goes, no, be real. I said, okay. We'll give it. We've got 30 minutes left in this camp. I'll go see. So we go back to the cabins before we come down for the closing ceremony, and I gather them all around. They still can't believe they're not in our cabin yet. Nothing has changed. With them, nothing has changed. I said, okay, guys, me and whoever the junior counselor was, I can't remember, we're going to go outside. We're going to talk about it. And how you guys are in the cabin while we are out there. I mean, how easy could I make this?
Right. I'm handing this to you.
I am teeing the ball up.
Right.
We're going to go talk about it, how y'all are while we're out there. So we go out there, and he and I sat down on the steps, and we're talking. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. We're giving him a little time. We hear things starting to get a little riled up in there. You know, we only been out for like 2 minutes. I don't know. About the time we were like, well, maybe this flip-flop comes hurling out of the cabin, smacks me in the back of the head, you know. And I'm like, no. All of them are just dying laughing in there. They just got the biggest hoot. Unfortunately, I think it got to be where they were like, we're going to try to not be an honor cabin so that whatever. But when I got hit in the head with a flip-flop, that pretty much
sealed
the deal.
Yeah.
And so, I was, I came walking down from that. Gary's looking at me like with the eyebrows like, huh? Yeah? No? I'm like, no. I was assaulted. We are not.
I love that.
We're not doing that.
Well, John, I'm grateful for you to be on here.
Man, it's an honor.
Obviously, thank you for the legacy, because I'm here today, maybe not directly through you, but indirectly through you.
Hey, you guys are doing it for such a time as this. The culture is insane. Insane. The ideas that you're talking about are so foreign to youth culture right now and becoming more and more foreign.
Right.
Man, I'm so glad y'all are here.
More
appreciate
power
to
that.
you.
We got a mission.
Yeah.
God's got a call on all our lives. So I appreciate that, John.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you. Love it.